The morning began like any other Tuesday in our quiet neighborhood of Maple Ridge Estates. I was sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee when 6 black SUVs rolled up to the house across the street. Within minutes, agents in jackets labeled FBI were filing through Patricia Lawson's front door. They came back out carrying box after box of documents, while Patricia stood on her lawn in fuzzy slippers and her signature HOA president's sash, shouting that it was all a misunderstanding about voluntary contributions. Let me back up a bit. I'm Daniel Foster, and my family moved into Maple Ridge Estates 3 months ago. We found what we thought was a perfect home at 247 Pine Valley Court, a beautiful colonial with a big backyard for our 3 kids. Best of all, thanks to a decades-old property line quirk from the 1970s, our house technically sat outside the HOA's jurisdiction. We thought we'd hit the jackpot. Patricia Lawson thought otherwise. She showed up the day after we moved in, clipboard in hand, a forced smile plastered across her face, and wearing a blazer embroidered with HOA president in gold thread, despite the 90-degree heat. She introduced herself and cheerfully informed me that, while we weren't technically required to join, it would be in our best interest to contribute the monthly dues of $95 anyway. The way she said it made it clear that optional wasn't really an option. I politely explained that since our property wasn't part of the HOA, we wouldn't be paying dues. Her smile tightened into a grimace. She warned me I was making a mistake and told me that neighborhood harmony depends on universal participation. I thanked her for stopping by and closed the door. That was my first mistake. Patricia didn't handle rejection well. The harassment started small. Each morning, I'd find new flyers tucked under my windshield wipers, pamphlets touting the benefits of HOA membership. The messaging escalated quickly, with slogans like unity through compliance and the dangers of nonconformity. Then came the passive-aggressive notes about maintaining neighborhood standards. Patricia would stand at the edge of our property, tape measure in hand, documenting the height of our grass and the placement of our trash cans. One morning, I caught her measuring the distance between our decorative roses. When I asked what she was doing, she said, with complete seriousness, that optimal rose spacing is crucial for property values. She even had a binder full of plant placement guidelines, one she'd apparently written herself. At first, my wife Sarah found it funny. She'd wave at Patricia from the window, while the woman furiously scribbled notes. But her amusement vanished when Patricia started photographing our kids play in the front yard and posting the pictures on the neighborhood Facebook page with captions about unsupervised children lowering property values. The post got worse. Patricia began writing long essays about how non-HOA houses attracted undesirable elements. She even made charts with made-up statistics. One claimed that homes within 500 feet of a non-HOA property lost 30% of their value annually. I tried diplomacy. I invited Patricia over for coffee, told her we appreciated her commitment to the neighborhood, and asked her, politely, to respect our privacy and property boundaries. She nodded pleasantly, said she understood, and even complimented Sarah's banana bread. 2 days later, a police cruiser pulled up to our house. The officer explained they received a complaint about a potential code violation concerning our fence height. After measuring and finding everything compliant, he mentioned this was the 3rd call that week, each one from the same person. The officer, a weary-looking man named Deputy Richards, pulled me aside and quietly suggested we start documenting everything. Apparently, Patricia called so often they had a dedicated file for her reports. That's when Sarah decided she'd had enough. She's a forensic accountant, a detail Patricia didn't know. While I documented Patricia's harassment with photos and videos, Sarah began digging into the HOA's finances. What she uncovered was enlightening. The HOA collected $95 a month from 142 homes, over $13,000 monthly, or more than $160,000 a year. Yet the only visible improvements were some flower plantings and a summer picnic that couldn't have cost more than $500. The math didn't add up. Sarah submitted formal requests for the HOA's financial statements. Patricia ignored them. Instead, she doubled down, hosting HOA meetings in her backyard and conveniently aiming the loudspeakers toward our house. For hours, she droned on about the dangers of noncompliance, repeatedly referencing certain households that refused to support the greater good. So Sarah dug deeper. She discovered that the Maple Ridge HOA wasn't registered as a nonprofit. No 501c. 3. Filing, no state registration, no elected board, just Patricia, collecting 6 figures a year with zero oversight. Through public records and some creative investigating, Sarah traced the money. Patricia had used HOA funds to buy a hot tub, take multiple vacations to Cabo San Lucas, and purchase a collection of ceramic unicorns she claimed were for neighborhood beautification. She'd even classified a $40,000 kitchen renovation as an HOA headquarters improvement. Sarah compiled everything into a meticulous report, cross-referencing suspicious transactions with HOA meeting minutes Patricia had filed with the county. The problem? Most of those meetings never actually happened. After interviewing dozens of neighbors who confirmed they'd never attended the alleged quarterly meetings, Sarah finalized a report and sent it off to the IRS, the State Attorney General, and, just to be thorough, the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division. And then we waited. While the investigation quietly unfolded, Patricia escalated her campaign of harassment to new levels of absurdity. She called the police claiming we were running an illegal daycare because neighborhood kids sometimes played in our yard. She reported our perfectly licensed golden retriever to animal control as a public menace. She even tried to sic the health department on us for improper garbage storage. When those didn't stick, her accusations became more creative. She claimed I was running a commercial photography business because I took family photos in our backyard. She reported suspicious gatherings when we hosted our 8-year-old's birthday party. She even called the fire marshal about supposed code violations involving our barbecue grill. Each time, officials found nothing wrong, and several of them quietly admitted they were getting tired of her calls. The police began documenting her false reports, and Deputy Richards mentioned they were considering charging her with misuse of emergency services. Then Patricia made her biggest mistake. She sent a letter to every homeowner in Maple Ridge Estates announcing that due to new regulations, HOA dues were increasing from $95 to $150 per month, effective immediately. The letter, printed on official-looking letterhead with a fake state registration number, warned that any household behind on payments would face legal action, wage garnishment, or even property liens. The threats terrified several residents, especially elderly homeowners on fixed incomes, and a young family still recovering from medical bills. When they protested at the next HOA meeting, Patricia coldly told them that financial hardship isn't my problem, and that maintaining property values requires sacrifice. Unfortunately for her, one of those residents was George Hoffman, a retired federal prosecutor. George immediately suspected something illegal and began his own quiet investigation. When he compared notes with Sarah, they quickly realized the full scope of Patricia's operation. George still had contacts in federal law enforcement, and after making a few calls, everything started moving fast. They discovered that Patricia had been falsifying records for years. She'd embezzled over $400,000 by fabricating meeting minutes, inventing entire votes, and even creating a fictional HOA board of directors. The supposed members included people who had moved away long ago, and one board member named Jennifer Excellence, who turned out to be the name of Patricia's childhood doll. The record showed that every measure Patricia proposed passed unanimously, including a bylaw naming her HOA president for life with an annual salary of $60,000. It was blatant fraud. The investigation accelerated when agents traced the money to a shell company called Lawson Community Services, LLC, a fake neighborhood improvement organization Patricia had created to funnel funds into her personal accounts. 3 months after we'd moved in, the waiting ended. That Tuesday morning, I was once again sitting on my porch when the black SUVs rolled into Maple Ridge Estates. FBI agents poured out, moving efficiently through Patricia's house, removing computers, filing cabinets, and boxes of doctor financial records. They found Patricia's real accounting books hidden in her attic, records detailing exactly how she'd siphoned money from the community. There was even a journal outlining her plans to expand operations to nearby neighborhoods. As they led Patricia out in handcuffs, she was still shouting that it was all a misunderstanding, that she dedicated her life to this neighborhood, and deserved compensation. She spotted me across the street and screamed that it was my fault, that I had destroyed the harmony of Maple Ridge Estates, and that property values would plummet without her leadership. The investigation revealed everything. Mail fraud for sending fake dues notices, wire fraud for electronic transfers, tax evasion for unreported income, and even racketeering for running the HOA as a criminal enterprise. The infamous ceramic unicorn collection alone was valued at over $30,000. During her trial, Patricia tried to claim she believed she was entitled to the money as compensation for her work. The prosecutor countered that legitimate HOA presidents don't typically buy boats named Community Pride with association funds, especially in a neighborhood that doesn't have a lake. When confronted with evidence of her lavish purchases, Patricia insisted every item had been for neighborhood benefit. The jury didn't buy it. Patricia Lawson was convicted on all counts. The judge, clearly worn out by her courtroom theatrics and constant interruptions, sentenced her to 5 years in federal prison and ordered her to pay $487,000 in restitution to the defrauded homeowners. As the sentence was read, Patricia's confident facade finally crumbled. She broke down sobbing, still insisting she'd done nothing wrong, that she'd earned every penny through her dedication to the community. She screamed that the neighborhood would fall apart without her guiding hand, and as the bailiffs carried her from the courtroom, she wailed that property values would crash and that we'd all regret this. Maple Ridge Estates, however, didn't fall apart. It flourished. Without Patricia's tyranny, neighbors started talking again, hosting real community events. No dues, no fines, no threats. Sarah and George even helped form a new neighborhood association, a legitimate one this time, with transparency, open books, and no ceramic unicorns in sight. And every now and then, when I sit on my porch with a cup of coffee, I can't help but think how it all started, with a woman who thought she owned a neighborhood that was never really hers.